Welcome CTM students to the last lesson for chapter 11 for us here. Lesson 11.5, talking today about buying a house with a mortgage. Lots of new vocabulary here for you. A lot of these terms you're probably not very familiar with unless you've had your own mortgage before. But I've had some mortgages myself. I actually bought my first house a few years back and have been working on getting some income properties as well. I feel like it's a great time to invest in properties as I'm making this video, or the year I'm making this video right now. Really, it hasn't been a better time to buy in a long time. So let's start looking at some vocabulary here. Assuming I can spell, here we go. Homeowners mortgage. Let's start with a few definitions here so we know some basics to build on. So homeowners mortgage. What is a homeowner's mortgage? It's a long-term loan. And just like it sounds, you're going to be a new homeowner, you're going to have a mortgage. It's going to be a long-term loan, a mortgage on a house or property of some sort. Usually, you'll see these mortgages being somewhere from 10 to 30 years. The most popular two are 15-year mortgages and 30-year mortgages. But 10 to 30 years, where the property is pledged as security for the loan. Meaning that if you fail to pay the loan on time, they'll give you some flexibility usually, but if you don't pay for long enough, they'll take the house away from you. So as security for the loan, the house, the property is security for the loan that you're getting, the mortgage that you're getting from them. A down payment. It's money you pay down, money you pay up front. So a down payment is cash paid up front. Before a lender will agree to a loan for a mortgage. There's a lot of factors that lenders will consider when deciding whether they're going to give you a loan or not. Down payment, having enough for a down payment is definitely one of those factors. Others will be credit ratings. Trying to keep a good credit rating is important in terms of trying to get a mortgage later on in life. There's a plethora of other things that they consider as well. These are just a couple things: the credit rating, down payment. Most lenders will require something like a 15 to 20% down payment on a conventional loan, which we're getting to in a second what that is. I said conventional, but I'm meaning to write variable rate here. Trying to do two things at once sometimes doesn't pay off. Adjustable rate or variable rate loan is another type, or another thing we need to know about. We'll get to the conventional loan after this one. So what is that? That's a mortgage where the interest rate can vary. Mortgage where the interest rate can vary, can change. From period to period. And usually it'll be something like 6 months or a year. They're not going to change it every single month on you, but adjustable rate mortgages, it depends on the time that you're getting a mortgage. If interest rates are super high, an adjustable rate mortgage might be a better deal. If they're really low, I think the better way to go would be a conventional loan, because those loans, they're going to have fixed rates. So a conventional loan, the rates aren't going to change. You don't have to worry about interest skyrocketing and you just paying up the wazoo for all kinds of interest that you wouldn't have had to pay had you got that fixed rate locked in. So it's a mortgage. Conventional loan is a mortgage where the interest rate is fixed for the duration of the loan. So you lock in a rate and it never changes forever however many long, or for however many years you have that, however long you have that loan, whether that be 15 years, 30 years, maybe you had a less normal amount of years, like 10 years, 5 years, however long you got it, the rate's not going to change with a conventional loan. When you talk about closing on a mortgage, that's going to be the final step. That's going to be pretty much the day you get the keys to the house. It's the final step of securing a mortgage loan. Securing mortgage loan. Mortgage. And then sometimes they will make you pay what they call a point or points. Maybe they'll have multiple points. The points, these are extra. I'll put the S in parentheses. Sometimes it's just one, sometimes it's more than one. It's extra cost charged at closing that in turn can reduce the interest rate. The interest rate. And generally 1 point is going to be equal to 1% of the loan. But this can pay off. If you pay off points at the beginning of the loan, it's going to cost you more up front, but then in the end you could save money on interest in the long run. So let's move on to an example now. So congratulations, here we go. This is going to be your first new house, your first, maybe it's not brand new, but your first house. It's new to you. So you're buying your first house. Congratulations. Now we're going to have a lot of numbers thrown in at you. Sometimes people, when they're first getting into their first mortgage, it can be kind of daunting. I want to break down the math and make the math just easy to understand, hopefully, for you. The purchase price, take the mystery out of the math behind all this. The purchase price is $155,000. So you know what you're getting charged. If you take that mystery out of the math, you know why you're getting charged, what you're being charged, etc., etc. And so the lender is requiring a 20% down payment, not atypical of a conventional loan. We're going to say you're getting a conventional loan here. 20% down payment and 2 points. At closing. Part A, determine the down payment. How much are you going to pay for the down payment? Determine the down payment. And so this is actually a really easy problem. We just take this number, $155,000. That's our purchase price. And we're putting 20% down on that. So we're going to multiply that by that as a decimal, 0.20. That's it. So take a calculator at that point. You could take 10% of this and then multiply it by 2. That's the same as 20%. But I'll put it into the calculator right here just to check that. So $31,000. That means you have to have, at least for this lender, they're requiring that you have $31,000 up front. So you had to save for a while. You had to make sure you had that much money to give to the lender. Basically, a down payment is kind of like assurance that you're legit, that you've got money, you've been saving money, you've been considering this for a while. You didn't just do this on a whim and you're like, oh, I want to buy a house. Well, do you have a down payment? Do you have enough for that? Oh, yes, I've been saving for a while, sir. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I'm ready, rather than just saying, no, I need a down payment. What's that? So you've been ready for this. You got the down payment. You got your money saved up, and you're ready to buy that first house. So determine the mortgage now. What's the mortgage? The mortgage is the amount they're going to loan you. So we take the purchase price, and we subtract the down payment from it. You already paid that. So the loan, the amount of the loan, we take this minus this, we're going to get $124,000. That's it. for the mortgage. Now there's going to be extra cost added to this. There's going to be interest on top of this. There's going to be taxes. There's going to be insurance that you have to pay on the house too. But the mortgage itself is $124,000 in your case. Now we want to determine the cost of the points. Before we said 1 point was going to equal 1% of the loan. So the same thing here, 1.1% of the loan. So you're going to have, oops, what am I writing that for? I don't know, 124, or no, sorry. Yeah, I got to fix that. I wanted to put 124,000 here. Originally I was thinking 155,000, but no, we're going to do the points on the mortgage itself, not on the purchase price. You don't have to pay points on the down payment. So it's going to be this times 0.02. This is because, let's put this now in a different color. We're going to use some different colors throughout here. Circle this, and we'll make a little side note here that 2 points is equal to 2% of the mortgage. So that's why we're multiplying by 0.02. So at this point, we'll take a calculator. At this point, we take a calculator and we multiply 0.02. The cost of the points, $24.80. So this would be $2,480. And then part D, determine the total amount you'll pay at closing. So I remember the first time I went to a closing meeting, basically to get my keys to have the property turned over to me. I had to bring a big fat check for the down payment and the closing points and stuff like that. So what's that amount you're going to have to bring to that meeting? So $31,000 for the down payment plus the cost of the points plus $2,480. Add that together, you're going to get $33,480. So maybe you have to write a cashier's check, something like that, to the lender in the amount of that much money. Remember though, because you paid those points, that means you're going to have to pay less in terms of the interest rate, which over the long run should benefit you in terms of how much you have to pay back to the lender. Well, let's check out a second example though. So this is example 1. All this stuff here, some pretty basic stuff, but pretty important stuff to know how much exactly you're going to have to pay up front and whatnot. So here, let's put down another definition here, and then we'll move on to a second example. What is adjusted monthly income? We're going to have to know this for our second example. Adjusted monthly income. It's what it sounds like. It's going to be your monthly income, but just adjusted somehow. It's an amount that factors in your gross monthly income. So gross, I think of net versus gross. I think of gross as kind of being gross. It's not actually what you get. That's the gross value is like, that's not really what I got. The net value is what you take home after taxes, but the gross is before the taxes, before they take taxes and insurance stuff, whatever your company gives you extra, but takes out of your paycheck for that. So it's but it factors in, for adjusted monthly income, it factors in the gross monthly income, as well as any outstanding, so any loans you still have. They're not like, oh, that's outstanding. No, that's not what it is. It's not like that. An outstanding loan, no, I don't want to do that. No. It's still going to bring it up. It still brings it up. I wanted to say hi. Hi, everybody. So, outstanding loan that is not like, oh, that's great. Yes, I'm so happy I have an outstanding loan. No, an outstanding loan is one that you haven't paid off yet. So, outstanding loan. So, they're going to factor that in because that's going to be taken out of your monthly income, your adjusted monthly income, as well as any outstanding loans in the seller's name, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Outstanding loans in the seller's name. to help determine the amount the lender believes the buyer can legitimately, I want to spell that right, legitimately afford for a monthly payment on a mortgage. So we're going to take gross monthly income, subtract any outstanding loans from that, take a certain percentage of that, and that's what the lender will believe we can afford. So let's take a look at an example that has that factored into it, our second example here. So suppose we're going to still use that same information from example 1, but suppose that your gross monthly income is $3,600. So that's before taxes. It's gross. It's not actually what you get. You also have 22 remaining payments. These are your outstanding loans now. You have 22 remaining payments on your college loan. And 31 payments. I forgot to write the amount in here. 31 payments of $150, sorry, of $150 on your college loan. 31 payments of $239 on your car loan. And you've also got some taxes and insurance. You'll have to pay property taxes, sometimes some other taxes on your house, and insurance. So the taxes on the house you want to purchase. And we're saying this is from example 1, so we're not going to come up with a whole new situation. We're going to keep using that same situation. Example 1 will be $140 a month. And then insurance will be, you found an insurance company that will insure your house for you for what you need it for, insured, what you need it for in terms of the amount you would get paid back if something happened to the house, something like that. So you found a place you were happy with, $52 a month for what they offered you. So part A now, what is the maximum monthly payment the lender believes you can afford? So this guy we're saying is your lender. This happens to be you, and maybe you're depending on some. I think maybe this is your friend or husband or wife if you get married someday, something like that. We're going to pretend that's the situation going on here. And so, what did we start with? Started with, let me move this off to the left just a little bit more. That way, I'm going to have you write some things in a different color off to the side, just explaining where these numbers are coming from. So this is $3,600. What is that? That is your gross monthly income. Write that off to the side in the different color. And then what are we going to be subtracting from that? We're going to be subtracting these outstanding loans, just the monthly amounts. If this is more than, generally it's, our book states at least, if this is more than 10, It's either more than 10 or 10 or more. I'm not exactly sure, but this is definitely more than 10. So if we have more than 10 outstanding payments on any loan, they're going to factor that into here. If you had less than 10, then they're considering like, you're almost done with that one. We're not going to factor that into the amount here. But 150 plus 239, they're going to be subtracting off the top here $389 from your gross monthly income. This is the total of your payments from the car and from the tuition. So this is your monthly payments. Remember, we can abbreviate payments like that, and this is coming from the car and tuition, your college loans. So when we subtract this from this, we get $3,211. And then they're going to take that amount. Generally, they multiply, according to our book, they're going to multiply this by 28%. And I've heard that number used outside of our book too, so I feel like that's a pretty legit number there. Lenders generally use 28%. So they're not going to say, you can afford a $3,000 a month payment just because you make that much money. No, you have other expenses to consider. You have probably your credit card payments. If you have credit cards, you probably have, besides this, we took rid of the car loan, we took rid of the college loan. But you're going to have food. You got to buy food. You got to buy gas for your vehicles if you're not riding a bike everywhere. So 28%, let's underline that in a different color. 28% of your adjusted monthly income to determine your maximum monthly payments. At least what they think you can afford, your maximum monthly payments. And so, a colon there, we're going to take that amount, $1,211, and we're going to multiply that by 0.28. Underline that in your different color as well. That's matching up here to here. And so we take 3211, multiply that by 0.28. That gives us, they're thinking that you can afford to pay this much per month, $899.08. Now they may factor your credit history into this, so if your credit history is poor, they might make this a little less, or they might not even give you the loan in the first place. If your credit history is good, they might be apt to raise this up a little bit. It kind of depends. It's not totally set in stone that this is the exact amount. If you're $899.09, they're not going to give you the loan, something like that. Now, they factor other things into it too, but that is a pretty general number that they're going to use as a gauge if they're going to be interested in doing business with you, pretty much. Now, from example 1, part B here, from example 1, your mortgage, we already figured this out, that the mortgage will be $124,000. Suppose you can get a 30-year mortgage, and again 15 or 30 generally what most people will get. If you can afford the 15-year mortgage, that's usually the better way to go because you're going to pay less interest over the long haul, and they'll generally give you a lower interest rate as well because they're not lending you the money for as long. They're not taking as great of a risk by lending you the money if you're going to pay it back sooner. So suppose you can get a 30-year mortgage at 5.0% interest. That rate, will you qualify for the mortgage? The big question. Are they going to be willing to do the deal with you? Will you qualify for the mortgage? I know with some of the income properties that I've gotten, because I had the outstanding loans on my own house, I was a little nervous that I wouldn't qualify for another mortgage, but in the end it worked out, and was able to get that for kind of some supplemental income, something to fall back on. If something ever happened, I would have a little extra money because of that. So using table 11.4. We haven't seen that table yet. We're going to get to that in just a second. Using table 11.4, we first determine the price per $1,000 of the mortgage. And so we're going to take $124,000. We're going to divide that by 1,000 because the table lists the numbers in terms of the price per $1,000. So this is going to be $124 is the price per $1,000. All right. So this is $124 per $1,000. That's why we're dividing by 1,000 here. And so from there, at 5.0% interest, that's what we had set up here at 5.0% interest for 30 years. I'm going to abbreviate years like that. Table 11.4 yields a value of, and let's check it out. What is the value it's going to yield? So we're going to find 5.0%, 30 years. We're going to look at the table here. Where's 5.0%? Here's the rate. 5 is 5.0. Here's a 30-year mortgage, so we line those up right here and right here. It's going to be $5.37 per $1,000. So we had 124 groups of 1,000. We had $124,000. So we're going to be taking 124 times that value times 5.37. So it yields a value of $5.37 per $1,000 borrowed, and which includes, if you look at the table and read it over, it says this including principal and interest. So it's including both those things, which includes principal and interest. So this is going to be factoring in or allowing us to figure out the total monthly payment here. And so let's figure this out. Interest. So the monthly payment for, this is just for principal and interest. It's going to be, you got your $5.37, you got your 124. Let's underline those in a different color, and that's where these numbers down here are going to be coming from. So this is $124 times the 5.37 per $1,000. This was going to give us our monthly payment, principal and interest wise, $665.88. Now this does not factor in our taxes and our insurance, so we have to add that to the monthly payment. We have to consider that as part of our monthly payment for right now. So adding monthly taxes and insurance, that's going to yield, we take our 665.88 plus, we take the taxes and insurance we had decided before here, $140 a month and $52 a month. We're going to take 140 and 52. We're going to add that to both of those, or to this value. We're going to add both of those to that value. Let's put that in our calculator and let's figure out what we got there. 665.88 plus 140 plus 52. Are we going to make it? We made it! $857.88. So we're cutting it kind of close, but it looks like this was their decision. They said, congratulations, we're going to give you a loan. You did the little handshake, and we're ready to move forward with the the process, the escrow process. So we have since $899.08. When a house is in escrow, that means they're kind of working it through. You're not guaranteed to get the house, but you are on track to get the house. And once it's out of escrow, once you actually close, then you get the keys once you close on the house. So since this is greater than that amount that they thought you could afford, you will likely, there might be something that would come up that would change their minds, but you will likely qualify for the mortgage. Congratulations! Woo! You're going to be moving into a house pretty soon, it looks like. Your own house, your first house. You will likely qualify for the loan. I remember the excitement that I had when I first found out my first house I was going to qualify, I would be okay. I was pretty happy, pretty stoked about that one. Alright, so let's check out a third example now. We're still going to use information we've been using from examples 1 and 2. Assume all the information from examples 1 and 2 still holds true. So this is, it's kind of like a mega example broken down into different parts here. Part A, determine the total amount. A mega example for a mega deal. A house, purchase of a house is generally the biggest purchase most people will make in their entire lives. So determine the total amount, and it would make sense that there's a good deal to it because of that. So determine the total amount, including principal, so the amount of the mortgage itself, interest, which ours was at a 5% fixed rate, the down payment, we said ours was going to be, I believe it was $31,000, if I remember right. Let me just double check that quick. Yep, $31,000, the down payments, and the points. You'll pay the lender for your house over 30 years. So that was the length of your mortgage, the 30-year mortgage. How much is that going to cost you total in the end? And we're going to say this is without taxes and insurance. So without taxes and insurance. That you're going to have to pay no matter what. That's what we're going to consider without. We're going to consider the amount without taxes and insurance. So let's start off with our monthly payments. We had $665.88. And I'm going to move that just a little bit more this way. I don't think I want to take the whole thing there. I think I'll be alright there. I'll write off to the side in red here. This is the principal. Let's try that again. In red, there we go. Different color for you. The principal and interest. So principal / interest per month. You can abbreviate month with MO. That is commonplace to do that. We're going to take this times 12. There are 12 months in a year, so this is going to be your yearly amount paid in. I take this times 12. I'll just check my math. I did the numbers before, but good to double check those. So this times 12 should be $7,990.56. So my total amount here is $7,990.56. What do these things represent? Off to the side over here, let's put this in our different color. So this is the number of months in a year. That's why we multiplied by 12. Number of months. You'll see a months abbreviated like that, MOS sometimes. So months in year, you'll see abbreviated like that. So I'll put YR for year. And so this is going to be the principal, interest, and interest per year now. Principal, interest per year. Again, we're leaving out the taxes and insurance. We're just checking what the principal and interest is right now. And so we're going to have, this was a 30-year loan, so we're going to be multiplying this number by 30. And we take that, and let's see what we get with that. I'm just going to use my keyboard itself here, because sometimes that seems to give me some problems that will double type in a number, and I'm getting sick of that. So this was this amount here. This is going to be, bring that back up again, $239,716 and 80 cents. So that's the total number of years right here. Or I can just say number of years. I guess I don't need to write total. It's the number of years in the mortgage. We got that 30-year mortgage, total number of years in the mortgage, and then this number is going to be the total principal and interest paid in. So the total principal and interest. Think about that a second. You bought the house. The house initially cost $155,000, but this is the total amount that you're paying in with just principal and interest. And now we have to take that. Don't you remember something? Didn't you pay something else at the beginning? Yeah, you paid, what did you pay at the beginning? You paid a down payment. And so that down payment of, what was our down payment again? It was $31,000. That's added to that price, and we paid for those points as well. So how much did you actually pay for the house in the end? We're going to add $31,000 to this. And we're also going to add the $2,480 for the points. And let's write that off to the side again here. This was a down payment. And these were the 2 points that you paid to get that better interest rate. And so if you add this all up, what's it equal? Let's check the numbers now on that one. So I have this. I can just leave that in there, add 31,000 to that, and then add 2,480 to that. That leaves me with $273,000. $273,196.80. That is what you paid, principal and interest, over the course of the whole thing. So this was the total cost, principal, interest, and down payment, and the points. So this is the total cost of the house. And this is before taxes and insurance. So a $155,000 house cost you $273,000 and 196, or a little more than $273,000 in the end. Is it worth it? What would your money be going towards if you didn't buy a house? Well, you gotta do what? You gotta either, hey, come up, I'm here. Okay, you either gotta buy a house or you gotta rent a place somewhere, right? Unless you stay with your parents for the rest of your life, which I hope you don't do. Not the best idea there. Hopefully you get your own place someday. And so you're either going to pay your money for rent and you will never ever see that money again, or you can build equity in a house, even though you're going to have to pay a little more than in terms of interest. That interest, you won't see that again, but the amount that goes towards the principal, that you're building up as equity. You're not going to lose that money. Hopefully the value of your house also will go up with time. That generally is what happens. Sometimes there's definitely peaks and valleys in the system. I know where we live here, a few years back, or maybe 10 years back, houses were going for about twice as much as what they're going for now. Now is a great time to buy because the rates are so low and the housing prices are still so low. But if you would have bought 10 years ago, some people got to a point where they were actually paying more. They had lost so much money on the house that they were behind in terms of what it was worth. So what the house is worth now, they didn't even have that much paid off on it, and so pretty bad situation. They were upside down in their house. I feel like I'm not explaining this as well as I could, but they were upside down in their house. They basically owed more than the house was worth. That's what I'm trying to say. They owed more than the house was worth, and it was a bad situation for them. Some people declare bankruptcy because of that, or they just have to move out of the house and put it short sale, stuff like that. Things like that happen. But let's do part B now here. So how much of the cost will be interest? My apologies for the brain fart there. Sometimes that happens when I'm making these videos. I'm just talking for a long time, and that's why I use this pause button down here sometimes. Sometimes I just have to gather my thoughts so I don't waste your time and get you confused by saying something that doesn't make sense. So I do that. I use that once in a while. So how much of the cost will be interest? Let's do the numbers here again. So this is the total cost of the house. This is without taxes and insurance. This is including principal, interest, down payment, and the points. So this is the total cost of the house. Again, let's write that off to the side in our different color. Total cost of the house. And then what are we going to be taking away from that? Well, the purchase price, we should subtract from that. That includes here down payment plus the mortgage loan itself. So we're subtracting that. That was not interest. The down payment and the mortgage itself was non-interest part of that. So we want to get rid of that. So we're subtracting the purchase price. And let's see what that leaves us with. I still got that value there, so I'm just going to subtract now $155,000 from that. That'll leave me with $118,196. Let's keep that going in our normal color here. $118,196.80. And so this right here, this amount represents the total interest, but this includes those points that we paid. And so that's not part of the interest. That's something we paid up front. So the total cost, or the total interest, sorry, including points. The total interest including the points. We paid 2 points. So let's get rid of that value as well. We want to subtract the $2,480 that we paid up front for the points to get that interest rate lower. So this is going to be then finally $115,000. Let's just double check the numbers there. It's 2480, $115,716. $115,716.80. So right here off to the side, different color, this was the 2 points. And now this is the total interest. Ooh, so you paid, over the course of the loan, you paid the lender, and this is why lending is a good deal for banks and lending companies. They make a lot of money off of you. They made $115,716.80. But could you have gotten that house? Could you have moved in without the lender helping you out? Probably not, unless you have a rich relative that can loan you the money instead, or you just were able to save up for a really long time before you got your own place and could pay cash for it. If you could pay cash for your own house straight up, awesome. Then you can not pay this large amount of interest. But the sooner you can pay it off, the less interest you're going to have to pay. And so let's check out part C here, final part to this example. How much of the first payment is applied to the principal? How much of the first payment is applied to principal? And then by that you'll know how much of the first payment also is applied to interest. And so let's go back to we're going back to the beginning here. I equals PRT. That's how they're going to calculate the interest each month. So what is your principal at the beginning of the first month? Your principal on the loan, it was $124,000. That's where you started. So that's how much you still owe, $124,000. The rate, what is that? That is 0.05, because you had a 5% interest rate. And then 1 month, this is an annual interest rate, and so we have to do, this has to be in annual rates as well. 1 out of 12, it's 1 month, so it's 1 out of 12 months in a year. So let's off to the side here, this, put in a different color, this is the cost of the mortgage. That's what that number was. This was the interest rate, or more specifically, the annual interest rate. So that's where that number came from. And then this value right here, this is 1 month. That's why we're taking 1 divided by 12. We have an annual interest rate, so this needs to be in terms of annual things as well. So 1 out of 12 months in a year. Take this, crunch the numbers, 124,000. Let's clear this from before. 124,000 times 0.05 times the 1/12. And so we have times, I'm going to put this in parentheses, 1 divided by 12. Nope, 12. There we go. I tried to hit the wrong button there. And so that's 1/12. I'll press enter, and that'll give me your 1/12 of the other two multiplied together. This will be $516.67 approximately. We rounded that off, so I'll make that squiggly instead of like that. So this is the amount that is applied to interest. I almost boxed that in. I want to stay consistent. This is an important number, but this is this amount towards interest. Wow, that is a lot. Wasn't our monthly payment, Mr. Wagner, wasn't our monthly payment like $665.88? Yep, that's right. That much is applied just to interest. The other goes towards principal, but this, you'll never see that money again. Sorry. That is going straight to interest. The lender basically is getting that money for giving you the loan. So the amount applied towards principal is, and we said just a moment earlier, that was $665.88. That was what we had before as our monthly payments without taxes and insurance. We're subtracting $516.67 of interest for that first month towards interest right here. And let's write some things off to the side here. This represents our monthly payments without taxes and insurance. Put that in a different color. Off to the side, this value right here, I'm just going to underline what we had here. That goes right here. So that number comes from there. And we take this minus this. Let's see what that gives us. So 665.88 minus 516.67. That gives us $149.21. So that's the amount that actually goes off to pay the mortgage, that actually goes to pay off the house, in other words. So $149.21 goes towards the principal. And so there's this thing called an amortization schedule, and that's going to be our next definition. So let's take a look, and this is kind of an example of the beginnings of an amortization schedule, but let's define what that is. So amortization. I'm not sure where that word comes from, but it's kind of a cool word. I don't see too many Z's in words in the middle of these really long words. So amortization schedule is a list, or sometimes it's in a table, a spreadsheet type format, a list or a table that shows, whoa, it's a big space between those two. I don't need to make that big. A list or table that shows the payment number, or over here you can see this example has the month here instead, so the month or the payment number, the payment on the interest, and this one also shows the payment value itself. Sometimes they don't show that, but here's that payment on the interest. This was the payment number, payment on the interest, payment on the principal, and the balance of the loan. Here's the payment on the principal. Here's the balance of the loan in that example over there. And that is for each month of the mortgage. And so I actually want to show you an amortization schedule. So all we figured out was this first month. What we would be doing is taking this value, the 149.21, subtracting it from the amount of the mortgage, and then redoing this for the next period. So redoing the I equals PRT for the next one. You're going to do this 360 times. I don't think you want to do that by hand 360 times. That's why we have amortization schedules. And I just wanted to show you the score of the Seahawks-Cardinals game. Unbelievable. So this day, on this day, you can figure out what day it is from there. 58-0, the Cardinals lost. Bad day for the Cardinals. They're having a rough year. Anyways, so this was somebody else's information. Let's take our information. We have $124,000. I just Googled amortization schedule up here and found this one. I like this one the best of the first few hits that I had. Our mortgage term is 30 years, 360 months. That's going to be, we said we were going to get an interest rate of 5% per year. We'll say we're starting today. Yes, this is the day I'm making this video. I'm going to get rid of that. We don't know our monthly payments yet, but we're going to calculate the amortization table based on that information there. And so you will see that we have, there we go, I was freaking out for a second. So I had hit this down here. The information down there was actually correct, but this monthly payments wasn't right. It wasn't jiving with what we had. Now it jives with what we had. So we had $665.88. There's a little rounding error in here. Their values are probably a little better rounded than ours was. So we had that 5.37 from our table. Their values probably used more decimal places. So if we look down here though, let's recalculate the amortization table and see what that gives us. So this matches up with what we had. That interest paid here, this was $516.67. That was the amount that we had paid towards interest for that first one. It's the total interest. Now they're taking the $124,000, subtracting the principal paid. That's the new balance. Every time you have principal paid, you have a new balance. So each time you're going to pay a little less interest and a little more of the principal. If you can, I hope you're watching this. I hope you're not just skipping ahead, because this is really important for your life, or for making good financial decisions. I'm trying to help you out here. So if we added $100, just $100 more to our monthly mortgage payment, we would pay the loan off. You would think, oh, it's going to be like maybe a year or two sooner. No, it's going to be about almost 10 years sooner. It's a little less than 10 years sooner. You'll notice principal paid, we're jacking that up right away. We're going way, way higher, and so there's a lot less total interest that we're going to be paying here. Here's the total interest over the course of the loan. So we said the total interest paid before was about, what did we say? I think it was $115,000, and then with this you're going to pay $82,000 instead. So you're saving quite a bit on interest. Let's just check that for one more value. Let's say we paid $200 extra a month. Recalculate that and see what that gives us. So $200 extra a month. If you look down here, you're going to be saving, now we're at $65,000 instead for interest. So a lot less now than what we paid before. That's 200. Let's see what that is. So 200 times, oops, let's clear that. 200 times the 360 months. Well, we're not going to be paying for that many months. Actually, our new month will be, how many months is that going to be? So 2031. Oh, that's, what was our starting value was at 2012, and so that's going to be like 19 years, we'll say. So 19 times, maybe wondering where is he going with this. So 19 times that's the number of years times the number of months per year, about 12, so $45,600. We're saving a lot in interest over the long haul by paying this extra principal up front. We're saving about $50,000 up front because of that. And so if that wasn't making sense to you, the big thing here, what's the big thing here? You pay a little extra each month, you're going to save yourself big time in total interest over the long haul if you can afford to pay that little extra. So if you can get that 15-year loan instead, even better. If you can get a 30-year loan because that's all you can afford, but then you find out later in the mortgage that you can afford to pay a little bit more, great, pay a little bit more. You're going to save yourself a lot of interest in the long haul. You're going to save a lot of money in the end. And so there's some other information in here as well that I want you to read about. We're not going to write down the definition of every single thing in here, but I want you to read about these things. So write this down for me right now. This is part of your notes if you're one of my students. I want you to read about adjustable rate mortgages. I may end up asking you a question or two on the test about some of these things in here, so make sure you're reading about it and you have a general understanding what they are. So these are sometimes referred to as ARMs, the ARM. They're sometimes referred to as ARMs for adjustable rate mortgages. Add-on rates, or margins, they go with adjustable rate mortgages. Rate caps, so they sometimes will cap the rate. These adjustable rate mortgages, they can flex, they can go up or down, but there's a certain rate cap. If the government has their rate go up by a certain amount, there's going to be a cap on that, so that it doesn't go up way too much, so you suddenly can't afford to make the payments anymore. A periodic rate cap, very similar to that there. An aggregate rate cap, rate caps I'll say, and payment caps. All these things dealing with adjustable rate mortgages. Those caps are the most that it can go up by, or least it can go down by, something like that. FHA mortgages, I shouldn't say least it can go down by. It could go down by more. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking about that. FHA mortgages, VA mortgages. I want to move on here. FHA is Federal Housing Administration, if I remember correctly. VA would be the veterans mortgages. Sometimes these ones you can get by with a lower down payment. Actually, my first house was an FHA mortgage. I had a lower down payment that I had to make because of that, but there's some other catches to those things. A VA mortgage, veterans can get mortgages sometimes at really low down payments, or even 0% down payment. I have a friend that was able to get a VA mortgage because he had been in the Air Force. Graduated rate mortgages. These are sometimes referred to as GPMs, and they go up at a graduated rate, just like it sounds. Balloon payment mortgages, you have to pay these kind of all at once after a certain time. Make this big balloon payment. Balloon payment mortgages. These are called BPMs sometimes. And home equity loans. Sometimes you want to make another purchase and you take out a loan on the equity in your house. That's a home equity loan. Sometimes those are called second mortgages. So you take out a second mortgage on your home, maybe to buy another piece of property, because you want to do that. The time is right. You're ready to buy a second property, or maybe you got a boat or a car. You want to take a second mortgage out for that. Sometimes you can get way better interest rates on a second mortgage than other loans, so you decided to do that. And so these are on these pages, 640 to 643. And now we'll check out our final example, example 4. And I don't know if you recognize that guy. We're going to say your cousin just happens to be this guy. DeMarcus Cousins is his last name. So your cousin, DeMarcus Cousins, is purchasing a house for $1,240,000. And why can he do that? Well, this is DeMarcus Cousins. He's an NBA player currently. At the making of this video, he's playing for the Sacramento Kings, and so he's got enough. He's got enough money to do that. He's an NBA. This is DeMarcus Cousins, and so he's one of their best players on that team. So $1,240,000 with Hey, why he didn't just pay for the whole thing with the salary he makes up front, I don't know, but he made a down payment and he didn't pay the whole thing off. So with a down payment of, he went with a 15% down payments. He had $186,000. I believe that's 15%. Let me just double check my numbers on that. So 124,000 times 0.15, and yep, that's 15% of that value. And he got a 15-year adjustable rate mortgage, 15-year ARM, with the following terms. And so within the context of this problem, we're going to learn about some of those vocabulary words that we saw here to read about. So we're going to use some of those here. The following terms: the interest rate, is based on a 6-month Treasury bill. So these are changing 6 months. We're saying 6-month Treasury bill. And so this is based on a government, kind of based on a prime interest rate type thing. 6-month Treasury bill, as far as I know, it's based on that. The interest rate is charged at 2.5%. We're going to say this is what they offered him, 2.5% above the Treasury bill rate. So above the Treasury bill rate. And let's put a little IE in here. So that is to say it's 2.5%, or that 2.5% is the add-on rate. That's what that's referring to. It's the rate we're adding on to the Treasury bill rate, the add-on rate. The rate is adjusted every 6 months. The federal government will adjust the Treasury bill rates every 6 months, and then we'll adjust this according to that. So the rate is adjusted every 6 months. The interest rate will not change more than 1% up or down. For each 6-month period. So that seems fair to me. If the Treasury bill went up by 3% and your interest rate for your mortgage suddenly spiked up 3%, that might really be hard for you to adjust to. So they're going to cap it off here at 1%, so 6-month period. And so it might go up by more that next, might go up by another 1% that next period, but it's not going to go up more than 1% at a time, they're saying. The maximum rate is, they decided for this specific ARM, it was 13%. So your interest rate could go as high as 13%, while there is no minimum. And the initial rate is 4.0%. So the Treasury bill therefore must have been at 1.5%, we're saying, because we're going to add 2.5 to that. So the initial rate is 4.0%, and the monthly payments are adjusted every 3 years. We're going to say they're adjusted every 3 years. So even if the interest rate goes up and down, your payment each month is not going to go up and down. You might be paying less though towards the principal, or more towards the principal, depending on what that rate is currently. So let's check out 2 different parts here. Part A. So DeMarcus Cousins, your cousin DeMarcus Cousins, what is his initial determine the initial monthly payment. So this is going back to things that we did already. We're going to practice it one more time. Initially, the house cost $1,240,000. So this is going to be, let's put this in a different color off to the side. This is the purchase price. And then the down payment that he made was $186,000. This was his down payments. And we subtract that from the purchase price to get the mortgage amount. And if we do that, just double check the numbers here. So we're going to have $1,240,000 minus $186,000. That will give, I did times, let's try that again. So 124, 123 minus, there we go, 186,000. $1,054,000. $1,054,000. This is the mortgage. The mortgage that he's going to have to pay off. This is before, not including interest. Not including interest. Wow. And not including taxes or insurance either. So using table 11.4. Table 11.4. Using table 11.4. We first find that 1,240,000 divided by the 1,000 gives us $1,240 per $1,000. So we got to find that first, and then we can determine. So we need to know that first. Find that to determine the monthly payment. At 4%, that's what we were starting at, 4% interest for a 15-year mortgage. So let's go back to that table. Table 11.4 was right here. We've got the values here. 15-year mortgage right there. 4% right towards the top. They're saying that matches up with $7.40 per $1,000. So we're going to take the value that we found here. This was 1,240, and I actually did something wrong there. Did you catch my mistake? I made a mistake here. This was supposed to be on the mortgage, not on the total purchase price. So let's fix that. My bad there. And so on the mortgage, this was, got to erase a little bit more there. There we go. On the $1,054,000 mortgage, that's going to be 1,054. Did I do that part right? I don't know. There we go. This was $1,054 per $1,000 here. That's being charged with the mortgage. And so we have 1,054. And for each $1,000 there, we're supposed to multiply that by $7.40 from that value is coming from the table. So this value, let's make a little note of that in a different color. This was from table 11.4. We lined up 15 and we lined up the 4%, and we found that that's the value for that. So from table 11.4, we said this times this is, let's work that out, 1,054 times $7.40, $7,799.60. That is his payment per month. So that's what he will owe on the house per month, at this adjustable rate, 4.0% 15-year mortgage. And so I'm glad he's got a nice salary, because that would be a beastly payment to be making if he wasn't an NBA player. And then finally, part B here, determine the adjusted rate in 6 months. Remember, this is changing, that treasury bill changing every 6 months. So what's the new adjusted rate in 6 months if the treasury bill interest rate is 2.0% at the time? Let's write at the time. So at the time. So they changed it from before. Remember, we said from the explanation of the problem, we're adding on 2.5% to whatever the treasury bill is. So this is a very easy problem based on that. We take 2.0%, that's the treasury bill rate, and then this is the amount above the treasury bill that we're supposed to add on. So let's make this in a different color. So the treasury bill, this is the new treasury bill rate. And then this is the add-on rate. That's how much we're adding to the treasury bill rate. Just take that plus that, our new interest rate, add those two numbers together, you get 4.5%. Is this allowed? What was our interest rate before? It was 4%. So did we exceed that 1% cap? That 1% up or down? No, we didn't exceed that. It only went up by 0.5%. So this is allowed. Let's make one final note about that. So since 4.5% is not more than 1% higher from the 4%, 4.0% before, we'll say that this rate is allowed. Okay, so that is that. So hopefully after you've watched all this, you know a little bit more about mortgages, how they work, and what you can potentially afford someday yourself. And again, you're trying to get the lowest interest rate possible. That's always important. You're trying to get for as few years as possible, because you can get a 15-year mortgage. If you can afford it, you're going to pay it off sooner, and the interest rate you'll get will be a better interest rate. Think about these things. I hope you really paid attention well to this lesson, because this could save you, literally save you thousands, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars over the long run. Hopefully you paid attention. Hope it serves you well in the rest of your life here. All right, so have a good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is for you as you're watching this, and I will catch you later.